What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about 5 really cool 2020 model year vehicles that I have recently driven that really stood out to be something above and beyond what I was expecting. So we're going to get right into it, starting with the first one, which is the all-new 2020 Ford Mustang, the Shelby GT500. That is not a Mustang. It is just not a Mustang. I have driven hundreds of Mustangs before. I used to sell them when I worked at a car dealership. So the previous generation Shelby, I am very familiar with. When I drove this new one, the 760 horsepower of it, the 7-speed dual clutch Tremec transmission, it was so precise. I just was not expecting the precision in a Mustang. It handled so well, the balance was good. And that's a heavy car. It's like a 4,000 pound car, but you do not feel the weight. It just felt like it could be carried around the turns really well. The power delivery was very smooth and very linear, using the transmission and everything. It just felt so fluid to drive, and it was a nice driving experience. Things I don't like about it, and I don't like this feature in all the Mustangs, it is the aluminum toggles down below where you do the sport modes. The thing I don't like, you have a few modes. You have a wet, a normal, a sport, a track, and a drag mode. So you have 5 driving modes. So when you toggle that little switch up, the first time you click it, it just tells you what mode you're in. It doesn't change anything. And then you have to toggle it again to get back to the next mode if you want it to be the one mode before it, because you can only go one direction. And since it comes up on the screen as well, it tells you, so you have to wait for the screen to change. So that is an annoying thing, but that is very superficial since the whole driving experience of it was so good. The seats were really comfortable. The Recaro seats, I mean, I fit so well in them. They were comfortable, they were supportive for performance, and just the car was impressive. The car really blew my mind. I am so impressed with it. Still has the muscle car things that Mustang owners are going to want, but it now has the precision and control that a sports car enthusiast is going to want. Has all the tech, looks amazing, looks like a beast out there, sounds amazing. I mean, that is one heck of a car. If you were not a Mustang fan before, but you really want something with some meat behind it, check out the new Shelby. I've always liked Mustangs in the sense that they're good cars all around, but I've never wanted to buy one. Now, after driving the GT500, this is something I could see buying. And a lot of people ask me how I think about cars compared to my GTR. This car really felt on par. It has the power, and the owner of this car, super cool guy, owner of Sunstoppers, and he and I are going to be doing some racing this summer. Stock GTR is slower than this car stock, but my car being stage 3 and all-wheel drive, I don't know. So I think we're going to have a really good neck-and-neck drag race and some roll racing with the two cars to see. But this car is very similar to a GTR in the sense of it's powerful, it's raw, it's ridiculous. So that is one heck of a car. I am definitely a fan. So on to number 2, which is the BMW M4 CS. So this was a really, really cool car. I've always been a fan of the BMW M4. I think it's a really good all-around luxury GT car that has a big trunk and rear seats to where it's actually a usable car. This could be a daily, no big deal there. And BMW even calls it an everyday race car. So hearing that going into this, I was like, okay, it's gonna be an M4. It's gonna be a little bit different. I wasn't expecting it to be a lot of it different. So the first thing, the hood on this car is completely made out of carbon fiber. And a lot of cars, they'll make a carbon fiber hood just to say, ooh, look, we have a carbon fiber hood. But then when you look at the underside, it's a metal frame. This car was a carbon fiber frame. The whole hood, every single thing was carbon fiber, and it weighed nothing. I can't convey how little weight there was on this hood. It was so lightweight. And that aspect, I feel like BMW went above and beyond just on that one piece. It's body color painted. You would never know that it is completely carbon fiber. So it's not like they were trying to show off to say, hey, look, we made a lightweight car. They just did the functional thing of making it super lightweight, painting it red to make it blend in with the car. And that made every other little feature you'd find in the car just stand out to be, they did a lot of little things to make this car a track car for the road. And when you get inside, you get the composite door panels, which is really cool. You get the little straps for your door closing handle things. The seats are really awesome. They're bucket seats. They look really good. They're very comfortable. But then the driving experience is what blew my mind. So of course the GTR is my own car, and I've driven that back to back with the M4 competition like 2 years ago. So I did a whole video on that one. And they were very similar. The GTR was completely more raw, more powerful, faster, but the M4 was cheaper for a newer car with less miles and still very fun and awesome to drive. So when I drove this M4 CS, I noticed so much mechanical and a raw feeling with the car. The entire suspension, the way it felt, it just felt like a car that I was completely connected to the ground with. Every little bump in the road I could feel through the seat and through the steering wheel, and every little input made a drastic difference with how the car was driving. The power delivery was really good. It did not feel like a normal M4 at all. It really felt above and beyond. And that's a car, again, comparing to the GTR, that and the Shelby are the only two cars I have ever driven that actually felt on par with the raw feeling that a GTR gives you. So this thing really, really impressed me. And of course the looks with the red, all the carbon fiber, I mean, that was a beautiful car. Only downfall, this was $106,000. Now that is a nice chunk of money for a car. My GTR brand new was around the exact same price point. Of course, I bought it used for almost $40,000 cheaper. So this M4, I mean, honestly, in a year or two will probably be worth like 60 grand. So you're gonna lose a ton of money if you bought this thing brand new. And the 2021 is the new one. So this is gonna be an old car in a few months already because the new generation is coming out. So 106 grand, that's a lot of money to pay for a car that's probably gonna be worth half in a year from now. And especially when you look at competitors, I mean, this GT500 is 85 grand. So that's a heck of a lot cheaper for something that is faster. But with the BMW, regardless of price, you get a very refined driving experience with a lot of technology, very solid car. And then you still get all the rawness. And while it's not as fast and powerful as a GTR or the Shelby, it has that European power. It's a lot different than American power, and it's a lot different than Japanese power. I know a lot of people like to compare horsepower in different cars, but depending on where the car is coming from, the power is a lot different. So you can't really compare this to an American car or a Japanese car because they really are a lot different. They all feel different. But this car was a blend of the GTR and my Supra. It really took both of those cars and blended it into one. So I was really impressed. If I could have one, I'd love one. It was a very, very cool car. So then on to the next car. Now we're bumping it up in price all the way up to over $350,000. One of my dream cars, which is of course a Lamborghini. So this is the Lamborghini Huracan Evo Spider. So I've always been a Lamborghini fan. The Gallardo's been the dream car since I was 10. But driving in the Lamborghini, because of the V10 sound, it is just glorious. Like the sound you hear in that thing is something else. But driving in the Evo, now it's expensive, $350,000. That is the most expensive brand new car I've ever driven. And this was a demo car, so I was actually able to drive it and like get on it a little bit. It had a couple hundred miles. It was for customers to drive it to see what it's like and then order their car. But this car, it looked amazing in the blue. It had all the red accents. I talked about this car for about 2 weeks, like every day, walking around my house, just talking to my brother, talking to people. Somehow I worked in talking about this car because it left an imprint in my mind of just such a good dream car, an iconic car, something that you really, really aspire to want to own. And after driving this, it made me want to work harder at every single thing I do, because not that I want to spend this much money on a car, but it just made me want to work hard to achieve anything. And this car is truly a dream car. The Evo is the new generation Huracan, so it's got the new screen on the interior, which really updates it a lot. Having that screen just makes it really cool to use. I like the user interface. It's easy to use, a lot better than the buttons on the previous Huracans. And then the rest of the interior with leather and carbon fiber and Alcantara, it's just a beautiful Italian crafted vehicle. It's amazing when you do hop into a car like this. There's a lot of precision, a lot of beauty in it. The only downside being the convertible, I actually don't fit. So I'm 5'11", not the tallest person in the world. With the top up, my head barely touches. Like I can feel my hair touching the ceiling, and that's with the seat all the way far down. And with the convertible, you're also losing that 2 inches of interior space. So with the seat, I just couldn't quite get comfortable in that car, unfortunately. To have my seating position comfortable enough to where my legs were all the way straight out to where I would like them, the seat back was like straight up and super uncomfortable. And then to have the backrest as comfortable as I could like it, my feet and knees are going to be in my chest. So I kind of had to have a mix between that. So I was a little bit too far forward and my knees were a little bit too far bent because I was too close. So I couldn't really fit perfectly in the convertible, and I would not buy the convertible. But I did get the opportunity to drive a coupe as well. I fit so comfortable. I had like this much headroom. I had seat room where I could go back farther if I wanted to. So for me, the coupe is the way to go. Just the convertible Lamborghinis are just not designed for anyone over probably like 5'8" in all honesty. But once I drove it, the precision with the transmission, the all-wheel steering, the handling, the power, the sound of that V10, it just sounded amazing, and it felt so amazing, especially with the top down. That was a car that, I don't know, that is what dreams are made of as far as cars go. That was a special car to drive, And when I got to drive the coupe, I just felt even more at home just because I was comfortable in it. But I don't know, the Huracan Evo, I mean, that is just a precise supercar. Everything that is amazing in a car, that car had to offer. So if you're in the market, I would definitely check one out. It was a fantastic car. So now on to number 4 on the list. Now this one is not a sports car, not a supercar, not even a fast car. This is the 2020 BMW 228i Grand Coupe. Now what stood out about this car is this is BMW's cheapest, most base model car you can get. This is the bottom of the line car from the lineup. But what really stood out, comparing this to the competitors, this did not at all feel like a base model cheap BMW. Now this one was $40,000, so it's not exactly a cheap car in general. But being the baby of the group, you would think it's going to be a car where they sacrifice a lot of the quality, a lot of the feeling, a lot of the performance just to get you into a BMW for a cheap price point. And I think they start into the 30s or probably closer to 30 at least. But I was really impressed with, I didn't get that from that car. I did not feel like it was a cheap car, a bare bones car. And when I do look at the competitors with this car, the Mercedes CLA or an A-Class and the Audi A3, not going to hate on those cars because those are nice cars. I really do like them a lot. But hands down, this BMW was a step above. The quality that this car let you feel was so much different. It drove like a BMW. It drove very solid. It just felt like a premium, high quality luxury vehicle. Now it's a small car. It's the smallest one, of course. It's their cheapest car. But it felt like a nice car. It felt like a BMW. Now, when you're driving in the CLA or the A3, you can tell that they're probably shared with lesser cars. You know, the A3 is probably a Volkswagen underneath. The CLA is probably a Chrysler 200 underneath. And I'm not 100% sure on that. But those cars, you do have that sense of, yes, they're cheaper. They still have nice attributes, you know, nice interiors, cool performance features, and a lot of tech. But just the driving does feel a little on the, if you were blindfolded, it could almost feel like a Toyota Corolla, you know, kind of that. But driving in this BMW was really nice. It just felt like a good car to drive. And the salesman that I was with during the test drive was super knowledgeable about the brand. And he was telling me a lot about how they build the BMWs. And basically what he was telling me is every BMW actually starts off to be a BMW. They don't take their lesser companies and say, hey, let's take this car, throw on BMW badges and call it our own. They literally made this to be a BMW 2 Series four-door vehicle. So it's really cool to see how BMWs are all BMWs from the beginning. And I totally felt that. It wasn't just a sales pitch from the salesman. I could totally see a difference between this car and the competitors. Now, I wouldn't buy it for 40 grand just because if I'm spending 40 grand, I feel like it's a very small car for $40,000. But if you don't need the space, if you do need something smaller for tighter parking, maybe you live in the city or something like that, you know, maybe you don't have kids, you just use the rear seats for storage, but you want the 4 doors, this is a fantastic car to get just because it just felt nice. It just, I don't know, it's hard to explain it, but it felt like a very nice car. And going into it, I was thinking this is just going to be another one of the luxury cars making their baby car that's going to be kind of cheap feeling, but did not get that vibe at all from the car. And that's probably all I got to say on that car. Not too much to go into. I mean, it's a pretty normal car, but nonetheless, if you're looking for a BMW that is the cheaper one and you want something that's still very nice and a quality feeling car, I would absolutely look at this car over the competitors. Like, if I had to pick, I'd probably want this one just because it felt the best. So that leaves us to number 5. You already know, of course, it is the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette, the mid-engine Corvette C8. I mean, you can't not talk about this car in a 2020 video. This is the best car for 2020 for the money. It makes every other's car pricing look ridiculous. My brother's spec is literally $78,000. It is cheaper than those other cars. And I don't know, it is going to change the way we think about sports cars because this car, very well equipped, let's just say 70 grand. I mean, nothing can compete. Why would you even want to consider buying another car for 70 grand when you can get a car that absolutely looks and feels like a Lamborghini, has amazing performance and so much technology and just so much goodness in it. It is a mid-engine supercar. Every other car company is going to have to change the way they design cars because even though I love the Lamborghinis for 300 grand, not that I can afford that car, but still, that is really hard to justify spending 4 times the price to get a car that just sounds a little bit better and is not even faster. I mean, the C8, you know, you can modify it with a supercharger and exhaust. I mean, you're a supercar right there. So it's just mind-blowing. The interior was amazing. This was a 3LT, so it was beautiful. Everything was leather and Alcantara and carbon fiber as well. And the whole inside, everything felt special and new. There was nothing cheap feeling. There was no corners cut. The reason why it is a good price is because General Motors is such a big company. They're able to allocate the money for this car and used a lot of shared parts that you don't see to make this car affordable. Like the whole heating and air conditioning system is probably the same as your typical Chevrolet car. The navigation screen, all of the infotainment and electronics, the window controllers are just partsman's parts. But all those things you don't see. Like I don't really care if my window mechanism is from a Chevy Cruze and it's in my Corvette. You know, you're not gonna see that. Everything you see and feel in this car, the way it drives, the items that you get to touch within the interior are unique in Corvette. But then the basic things that you never would see anyway are shared parts, which makes the cost drastically cheaper. And also the economies of scale. They're pumping out this car. They're gonna make hopefully 20,000 this year. Production has delayed, so Mike's car is delayed by like another month or so that does suck. But they're planning 20 to 30,000 this year, 30 to 40,000 the next year. This is a car they are making, they are producing. They're not just gonna make 4,000 or 5,000 every year and have the price drastically more expensive. I mean, this is just a true-on supercar for a good price. And I saw even a black McLaren GT on just a video, like a pan shot of it. And even on video for like 5 seconds, I was like, oh, that's a C8 Corvette. It looked no different. It was crazy. And then, yeah, the interior, it is just beautiful. It's an amazing car. It makes every other car look way too expensive. And it's one heck of a vehicle, and I am so glad it exists. I cannot wait for Mike to get his. I've been lucky enough to drive one already and check them out for a little bit. It is the most special, coolest car of the year, hands down. But that is it for my video of 5 really cool 2020 vehicles that I've driven recently that all stood out. All 5 of these cars, really. I was so impressed with driving. Like, if I could have them all, that'd be pretty cool. They're all amazing. They all have something different to offer, and they completely stood out above the competitors. Whatever you're looking at, if you're thinking about one of these cars, go check one out, go test drive one, spend some seat time in it, and get a feel for it, because they were all really amazing to me. So that is today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and stay tuned for plenty more content to come. I'll see you guys next video.